Show. Presented by Rivard Buick GMC in Tampa on 102.5 The Bone.
Good morning, everybody. It's Tampa Bay Fishing Radio. It's Saturday again, beautiful Saturday morning. Looks like we got some great weather on the horizon. We got some special guests in studio. Obviously, I say some special guests, a special guest. We got Don from Lithium Battery Power. And, of course, Isaiah is on the board. How you doing, Isaiah?
Hey, I got my coffee. I'm ready to go, my friend.
Yeah. Don, what about you, man? How you
Good.
been?
Happy St. Patrick's Day, right?
Yeah, oh, my gosh. Is it St.
Oh, it
Patrick's
is?
Day?
Well, Monday is, but today's the day
okay.
we get silly, right?
Well, you know what's weird is, so yesterday I was at the gas station. I was buying a bottle of water.
Water.
Yeah, I was going to go play golf, and I wanted to. I've been walking when I play golf, because my big ass needs to walk. And, so I'm buying a bottle of water, and they're all excited about the new gas price that just came out. And this kind of made me feel like they're just screwing with us. It was $3.14, which is Pi Day. Yesterday was Pi Day.
Oh, yesterday was Pi Day.
Right? And it's $3.14.
$3.14.
Yes. So I was like, so they're just doing whatever they want to us whenever they feel like it. Because they were like, oh, new gas price came out. It's $3.14. And the whole gas station, like the employees were like, yeah. And I'm like, what is that? And then I thought about it, and I was like, oh, yeah, today's Pi Day. It's $3.14.
Does that mean it's going to get more expensive as the month goes on?
Yeah, I don't know. I never felt more screwed with in my entire life, This whole thing is a simulation.
It is a simulation.
Right? And we're just riding the wave, and they're just, hey, plug this in for today and make them deal with it. That's how I felt.
Almost like the magnifying glass on the ants when we were kids, right?
That's exactly
we can make
right.
them squirm.
Yes. So make them pay $3.14 for Pi Day. Anyway, so we got a lot going on. Obviously, Lithium Battery Power. We're excited to bring them on as a sponsor.
Yes, sir.
And
glad to be here.
Yeah, they've also been very, very great to us with the Old Salt Fishing Foundation. So, Don, what's going on over there? I mean, it sounds like it's a good situation for everybody.
Yeah. So we're not just a battery company; we're a technology company. Most of our competitors just order batteries. They come in, they slap their stickers on them, and they send them out. They don't have any engineering. They don't have any technology that they build. Most of them are just a warehouse and office space.
Yeah. One of the things is, and I came up in the car business, and it's not like I could build a car, but I at least had great product knowledge, right? And that's one of the things that I think is really important is, if someone knows their product, knows the ins and outs of it, and you do learn, like for, just even as someone who manages a dealership or, a salesperson or whatever it is, you have to know little things about the cars that can fix things quickly, stuff like that. Because they might have like a goofy setting, like with Acura, they used to have keys that would have to be programmed to the car.
Right.
And if it wasn't programmed to the car, it wouldn't start it. And, you just had to know that sequence. So I think, if you're just slapping stickers on a Chinese battery, you might not even know that.
Correct.
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
And
the simple stuff.
Ours, we program our batteries. We've
Right.
got a BMS in them, battery management system. And most do nowadays. Most lithium batteries do.
Right.
Just to protect the batteries.
Mm-hmm.
We're constantly innovating. We're like leading edge technology with this stuff. When a battery fails, because occasionally they do, we find out why, and we fix it. The next group of batteries is better.
Right.
We find that about 95% of battery failure in lithium right now is user error, because there's, you don't just sling them in the boat and throw a charger on them and go like you do with the AGMs and lead acid. So we also really work with our customers to understand the technology, understand the battery maintenance.
Right.
And all of our new batteries have got a Bluetooth capability.
Okay.
So you can manage your battery from your phone.
So let me ask you this. I mean, and this is we got to tie it into boating and fishing. What would be the big applications for these batteries if you were a boat owner?
Trolling motors is number one for boats.
Okay.
You know, we can, kind of some of the old timers like the 36 volt systems with 312-volt batteries. So
yeah, that's a lot of batteries to carry around also.
It is.
Right? Yeah.
Thankfully with lithium, they're about 25 pounds instead of, 60 pounds.
Right.
So you're saving weight even with 3 batteries. But we also have 24 volt and 36 volt applications to save on space. So I can get you up to like a 36 volt, 120 amp hour battery and save you space and give you more runtime.
Okay. Yeah. That's, the thing about it is obviously runtime, you're fishing offshore and, you're using this, long shafted trolling motor with a high thrust motor to hold your, boat in place. And that's going to be going on for maybe 4, 5, 7, 8 hours, whatever it is. Some people might even, take it out for a couple of days. So having that ability, and it just makes such a huge difference to make it easy to fish, pull an anchor and everything, is tough. I don't enjoy it. Of course, some of the charter captains that I'm friends with, they have all, taught me how to drag anchor, which is a nice way to do it. But, if you are out there looking at a boat and you're going to be doing offshore fishing out of this area, and it's becoming common on the East Coast too, having a trolling motor is a big benefit. And it's just also becoming kind of like the standard. And, I don't know a charter captain right now that doesn't run a trolling motor.
No, I mean, every boat that we're seeing sold, I mean, even up to 42 foot.
Yeah.
I mean, they're putting 1, 2 trolling motors. The big Freemans that you see all over Venice, Louisiana, and up and down the coast of Florida, they're putting 1 on each side. We've got several of them with the big trolling motors, and then we'll have 36 120 on each side for each trolling motor. And we've got a small piece of technology called the on-the-go charger, and it'll allow for up to a 10 amp hour charge on your lithium while you're running from spot to spot.
Yeah.
So as you move from spot to spot, you can start building energy back into your battery, which just gives you more runtime. Of
course.
You get into the bite, you don't want to leave because your trolling motor shut off.
No, absolutely not. I just, it's, saves your back and puts you in a situation where you can anchor more easily. Anchoring over fish sometimes can be a task in itself, and there's a trick to it. Obviously, you always want to manage your drift, check your drift. I like to run a track of some sort so that way I can see what my drift is doing. And I would say that, a lot of guys that I've fished with, I'd say only 20% of them are actually really good at that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would not be part of that 20%.
Yeah. It's a tough thing to learn. And I think it also requires more patience than a lot of guys have. They just, they run up to the spot, they see it on their bottom machine, they look at it and they think, okay, I'm gonna drop anchor here. And it doesn't work like that.
No,
you know what I mean?
End up off the spot pretty far.
Yeah, you need to figure out what your drift is doing, run into your drift, and then set your anchor and come back. It might take 200 or 300 feet.
100%.
Right, to get that right.
Yeah.
And it's important to do if you're going to fish that spot. I think that, some people get lucky and maybe just get the things that are surrounding that spot based on that. And it could be fine, right? I mean, there are times when that works out fine. There are times, though, when, you'll do that and you'll be fishing with someone who's kind of learning that process or doesn't know that process. And, they're going to be like, man, this spot sucks.
Oh, 100%.
And it doesn't. You're just not on it.
Not on the spot.
Right.
Yep.
And, you can look at the bottom machine and they're like, well, what happened to the bottom? And it's like, well, I mean, we're 300 feet behind the spot,
Yep.
Or
we
whatever.
actually went through that last Sunday. We took a friend of mine's 48 Viking out. And it was only 4 or 5 of us. And I was running the boat and the kid that was with us wasn't all that excited about throwing anchor, and he didn't have a windlass on that boat, which blew my mind.
That's a little weird. Yeah.
It blew my mind. The boat didn't have a windlass, but So nobody really wanted to mess with throwing, the anchor for a 48 Viking. So we just drifted over the spots all day, and we had some action, but not as if we could have just spot locked on it and really got into them. I think
well, and like on a sport fish, it's very tough to get out on the bow and handle an anchor.
Especially with no bow rail.
It
They
had
take
no
the
bow.
No, they take the bow rails off to make them look sexier. And,
Yeah, I agree. It does look a lot better.
But then, you're up there in 2 to 3 foot seas bouncing around, and,
Yeah.
guys our size aren't good for that.
No. It's I honestly have never really been on the bow of a sport fishing yacht doing that. I don't really want to be. If I am doing anchor stuff, I'm used to being able to stand on the floor or
kneel on a seat.
Yeah. Something like that, especially being 6'3". Some guys climb on the gunnel and everything like that up on the bow, but for me, being 6'3", I can typically get an anchor out of the anchor locker and not have to. It's not like it's up to my chest or anything like that, like it would be for some people. But anchoring's important, and having the ability to run that trolling motor. And there's so many trolling motor brands now that are running these long shaft, high thrust, made for offshore boats. It used to be there was only one brand, and it seems like, almost every trolling motor brand you can think of is getting into that market.
So they got Minn Kota, Rodan, Power Pole.
Yeah.
I think Garmin's got one out now, the Move or something like
yeah,
that.
and what's crazy is how much these trolling motors cost, man.
Oh, you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean,
about to get my feelings hurt putting one on my boat.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, but they've just become so standard. And if I was running charters and I had, let's say I was running a center console, maybe 30 feet, 32, 35 feet, and a lot of times I'm running it probably as a captain by myself, and I don't have a mate with me or whatever it is. Being able to run that trolling motor would just make such a huge difference. And some of these trolling motors have, even the ability to deploy from the remote, and stuff like that. Which, I mean, if I was out there by myself a lot, and
I'm not quite dialed in with that yet.
Yeah,
I've been looking at them, and there's nothing worse than when you hit that button and it doesn't
do it. Yeah.
So
that would,
I'm gonna stick with manual for right now. But
yeah,
when I get that figured out, that's gonna be the cat's meow, as they would say.
Absolutely. And so on this, obviously we talking about fishing right now. Today we'll do a little weather report. We'll do that brought to you by Mastery Engine Center and Suzuki Repower. If you're going offshore today, you're probably not going to want to go too far. What I'm seeing is that the offshore buoy out of St. Petersburg, it's going to be picking up. The wind is going to be gusting to right around 30 miles an hour later in the day today.
40.
Yeah, and so you're looking at really getting up into the 5-foot sea range.
We canceled our trip.
I would say I probably wouldn't go tomorrow. Looking at just about the same thing. Actually, it's picking up to 7 feet. So that would be a day that I wouldn't go. And that's going to be going on through basically Tuesday morning. And Tuesday, it starts to lay down. Wednesday looks nice, but it's still going to be built up from the few days of 5 to 7 foot seas. But yeah, so Wednesday looks like it's going to be dropping down to about 2 feet. What I've always found, and this is, I'm not as Brian Ruby, Captain Brian Ruby, saltwater cowboy, would say, is I'm not a weather meteorologist, but usually what happens is that front that comes through even blows up the small forecast that's behind it, right? So it may be calmer than 2 feet. I would call it a game time decision on Wednesday, and then it just turns back on again. And Thursday, Friday,
it's March, right?
Yeah, Thursday, Friday. So Thursday, it's going to be back up to 5-6 feet. This is at the St. Pete offshore buoy, so this is where a lot of guys would go. Probably 60, 70 miles to fish. I don't know. I can't remember exactly where it is, but I know it's out there like that somewhere. And it just stays that way until basically Sunday. Where it's still running 3 feet. So it's just, we got kind of a rough week of weather. And the unfortunate thing is, we have a spear fisherman that Salty Dog Charters reached out to me about this last night. And this is really, hopefully, there's some light at the end of the tunnel on this one. But we have a spear fisherman that was out, and he was free diving. His name is Drake Sweet, and he went down, and I guess the story is he never came back up. So hopefully he's able to be rescued. We're gonna pray for that. But it's a really tough situation, and there's people out there looking for him, and it's going to be tough to do in this kind of weather. And that's I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it's not good. So hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel, like I said, but
definitely prayers for him and his family.
Yeah, it's anytime we ever have someone, and he's not on a boat. His friend that he was fishing with couldn't find him, went down to try to find him, and and all that kind of stuff, and nowhere to be found. Apparently he can get down to 140 feet free diving by himself. Is what I was told, and which is amazing. I can't imagine doing that. Apparently he can go further than that.
How far out were they? Were they in 140 feet, or were they?
I guess they were. That's what they were saying, is that he was
there.
somewhere in that range. He was down, like further south, like kind of off of Naples and stuff. Yeah. So basically like due south of Sarasota, and due west of Naples. So that's that's a long way, and hopefully somebody finds him before this weather comes in. But we'll see what happens with that. But like, once again, we're praying for the family and praying for him, and hopefully it's a good outcome. But on to some other things going on in the fishery. Obviously, if you're not a member of Tampa Offshore Fishing, please join it. It's a really easy way for you to get information about how to get into fishing, learning the fishery from pros, charter captains, really great fishermen, guys that are tournament winners. Guys
I'm on it.
Yeah, even Isaiah's on there. So if you want to learn something from Isaiah,
Not about fishing.
Yeah, Isaiah, I'm sure will show you something that you may have never expected to learn. But
discovered skills.
Yes. Well, I will say one thing, and it's a lot of people don't really think about this, but running a soundboard and all that other kind of stuff. I mean, it's really it's a tough thing to do. It's on the fly. It's live. I just run the stupid little soundboard we have with the old salts for our events. Sort of run it, right? And I'm playing with stuff nonstop. But somebody moves their head, somebody walks around with a microphone, and you just have to constantly be making adjustments for that stuff. It's a task, and it's got to be it's got to be good. I can't say it's perfect, but the one we have with the Old Salt Fishing Foundation is a really nice setup, and I think it's actually a little bit beyond our skill level, right? Because we get feedback, and it sounds like a lightsaber sometimes. We were doing the monthly meeting the other night, and it's the microphone's going by the speaker, and it's like whoa, whoa, and then it squeals, and I had to turn the gain down. That was some of it, and I'm sure Isaiah knows all about that. But
we know a guy.
Yeah, I don't think Isaiah works. How many hours a week you working lately, Isaiah?
I've given up counting.
Yeah, Isaiah works a lot. I don't know if we could. If I was Isaiah, I would say no to any more work.
I'll be here until I think 6 p.m. today, and then tomorrow it's 5 a.m. to maybe midnight, 10 p.m.
Yep.
And got to make that money, Yep.
You got one of them inflatable donuts to sit on?
Right. Well, I need to make that money because I have to pay my electric bill. But if I was smart enough, I would go to solar.
Yeah. Well, first off, join Tampa Offshore Fishing. And Zach and I are administrators of it, and so if you are jumping in it, please answer the questions. That way, it makes it easier to make sure that you're not a robot. And sometimes I'm sitting there looking at profiles, and I'm like, I don't know, because they're getting good, right?
Yeah.
The robots are getting good, and sometimes you just got to let someone in and see what they try to post.
Yeah.
that's one of the things about it. Because
you guys do a pretty good job. I've never had noticed much
spam
or anything on there.
Yeah, we really try to filter it out. Obviously we also have sponsors and preferred charter captains and all that other kind of stuff in there. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure that if you go on a charter with somebody, that it's going to be someone we know is a real charter captain, that we know is going to get you home safe, take you out and have a great time, catch a lot of fish. We used to have that wide open in there, and we had a lot of complaints. So, that's another thing that we're always working on, is just making sure that the charter captains you're going to be going out with are actually, in a situation where they know what they're doing, and you're going to be okay. But
I like the fact too, there's no drama. Like if the drama starts, it's squashed.
Yeah, we don't want to have people berating each other in there.
People learning about fishing and sharing fishing stories and pictures, and it's a probably my favorite spot on fishing.
Yeah. What's really funny is every time I make a post about solar, I get absolutely roasted in there. That's okay though. The thing that's really going on right now, it's funny when you bring up solar, Isaiah, is we're trying to work with what's going on in the city of St. Petersburg. If you're a city of St. Petersburg resident and you're waiting on a permit, I feel really bad for you.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. They have over 10,000 permits in the queue. It's a tough situation. I'm not sure exactly what the solution is. We're going to be talking with Chris Shearer a little bit about that in the coming weeks, and try to dig in and find out if there's a solution for people out there. I'm not saying we can get anything done. Maybe we can shine some light on what is happening. But we'll be, it's just, 10,000 permits in the queue, and, people are living in campers,
in the driveways, in the parks,
and it's, it's got to be tough. And I'm sure that the insurance companies are paying for some of that.
They're not paying actually, a guy I used to work with.
Yeah,
they were displaced from their townhouse, and a lot of this is on him. They just went and got an Airbnb over on the lake,
right?
Expecting FEMA to pay for it, and $6,500 a month bill, but they were giving them about $1,900 a month.
So the thing that I
fight
here's what I think about, right? We are so worried about insurance costs here in the state of Florida, and we want insurance companies to stay here and compete, right? But the more insurance companies that are willing to come to Florida and insure homeowners and auto owners and whatever, the lower the prices will be, right? That's just the way it is. There'll be competition in the market. Rates will be lower. The less it costs to insure somebody in the state of Florida, the less the prices will be, right? So if we have to hold somebody up in a camper, and they're getting paid by the insurance company $2,000 a month, right? If you do that times, 20,000 people or 100,000 people, whatever it is, that's a massive bill for the insurance companies. And that's very unfortunate. And that makes it very hard for us to have low premiums in the state of Florida. So that's another reason why there needs to be pressure on these cities to get these permits rolling through and get these people back in their houses. Because not only is your insurance company pay, and I'm not an advocate for insurance companies. It's just common sense.
You look like a Geico.
Yeah,
Gecko.
the Geico Gecko. I got my green shirt on today. I love this shirt, actually. This poor shirt, man. I've had this thing since probably 2021, and the inside of it is a totally different color than the outside. It's just
wear 2 days in a row.
Faded. It's just completely. I know. I could rip the tags off of it and turn it inside out. It was like a $12 shirt. I bought it at probably, I think, TJ Maxx or something like that. And every now and then I'll just go in there and get some shirts that I can, fish in. But this shirt doesn't stain. It's
a bargain for $12.
Yeah, it was.
Especially guys our size.
Yeah, seriously. But back to my point, check out Tampa Offshore Fishing. A lot of information in there. A lot of charter captains right now are doing a lot of red grouper trips. Red grouper is, to me, one of the staples of the fishery. Madeira Beach and Johns Pass area, Treasure Island. That area is, I think, the #1 grouper port in the country. Oh, wow. And I wouldn't be surprised, but red grouper, I'd say, is probably 60 or 70% of it, if not more. That's just me throwing a guess at it. Gags, obviously, the seasons have been closed. I think we're going to, once we get Gags back open again, I think they're going to be on fire.
We caught 7 or 8 shorts this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was just bumping off the bottom, drift fishing, and closures again. That's always a sore spot.
Well, when we had a 15-day gag season, and everybody got a lot of gags. I mean, they're out there, and I always say this, but to me, a gag is a every man's fish. It's almost like they kind of retaliated against us, and I'm a conspiracy theorist when it comes to this sort of stuff, but I've got everything but a tinfoil hat on. But when they opened up red snapper, it's like they took gags away immediately, right? You look at this trade we did, and so I do sort of understand why. I mean, I think that red snapper have become too strong in the population, and I think that they do need to be. I think they need to be opened up, and I think that red snapper also are a much more aggressive feeder than a gag grouper. They're not cautious when they feed; they just eat anything and everything. And I think that if red snapper populations boom, that it actually hurts other populations on the reef, right? Because they don't allow anything else to feed. Yeah, they don't allow anything else to feed. And I think you'll start to see other populations start to dwindle. Of course, the other thing that I think we need to do is open up sharks commercially again.
1,000%.
Yeah, sharks are out of control. They're everywhere, and they have no natural predators.
Just man.
Yeah, just us.
Yep.
So, I think that they need to be, I think they need to be opened up. The other thing I think we need to do is I think we need to start worrying about what China is doing. They have fishing fleets off the coast of all kinds of different areas of South America and things like that, and they are just absolutely decimating those fisheries.
Yeah, without regard.
Yep.
Without regard.
And
everything and anything, and they keep everything and anything.
That's right. And they do they drag the bottom.
Drag the bottom.
And so they're ripping up not just all the fish, but also all the habitat and everything that holds those fish. And so that's very scary to me. So hopefully we come to some sort of understanding of what's going on there and how to mitigate that, because South America and Central America and some of those areas have some of the best fishing in the world that there ever will be. Right? Yeah, for now. And that's just very scary to me. I'm not sure what'll happen. Obviously, China is a complex situation, because they become so strong since the 70s, since we started trading with them again.
Well, the problem is money.
Yeah.
Them South American countries have no money. China pays the countries. They let them do what they want.
They did the same thing in Africa. They said, we'll build your roads, we'll do this, we'll do that. And now they basically own a bunch of African countries.
Well, and for us, I mean, like the lithium world.
Yeah.
They've gone around and bought up almost all the lithium mines around the world.
Right.
So, it's not just when we say you can only get lithium from China, it's because they basically own all the mines now. So Africa and Ukraine or wherever they're at, I mean, they're all over the world.
Right.
Different deposits. And China owns probably 90% of them.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with, the focus that we've gone to with lithium. The batteries have just become so much more efficient, and the power you get out of them, the ability to run things that 15, 20 years ago, I remember when I got a radio controlled airplane, my first one ever, it was gas, right? It was nitro. And this was like in 1993.
Sometimes you cut your finger starting it.
Never. Oh. I never did. I had one of those little starter things for it that you.
I always had to crank mine by hand.
So I couldn't get mine to turn over that way. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I just sucked it.
Lady hands.
Yeah, maybe. But I had a little power crank for it. And
Nice.
And of course, I was 9 years old, so I wasn't allowed to fly this thing without my parents present, and we had to take it to an airfield and all that other kind of stuff. It was big enough to where you didn't want to fly. You couldn't fly it around the neighborhood. It just wasn't made for that.
Going through Aunt Mary's window.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was a major project, and honestly, I think In some ways it was good for me. It taught me responsibility, and I learned a lot about flight and all this other kind of stuff. But my point is, back then they had electric planes, but they were a joke.
Yeah, they didn't
right?
last 2 minutes.
No, they didn't last 2 minutes. They had no power. The wind would blow them all over the place. You really just couldn't fly them unless the weather was absolutely perfect. There's no wind, and then you just were charging batteries nonstop to fly the thing for a minute or two, and then it would just run out of power. Now, and this was as early as 2013, I bought one that was battery powered. It was lithium, and I guess it's lithium polymer. I don't know.
Probably back then.
Yeah,
I would say.
So, so lithium polymer batteries, and they take 30 minutes to charge, run the thing for 15 minutes. It would do like 60 miles an hour, right? And it was like a de Havilland Beaver, so it's like a kind of a boxy plane.
You don't know what flavor it was.
No, yeah, not vanilla extract like we always talk about, the natural flavoring. But yeah, it was a de Havilland Beaver, and it was a float plane. I used to fly it out on the bay all the time.
Very cool.
It was a lot of fun. And it was lithium power, and I could just, literally I had two batteries, and I could basically be charging one while I was flying the other, and I never really had to even wait.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The charge times and the flight times kind of matched up to where it was just,
by the time you landed it took it in and out.
I might have to wait like 5 minutes for the other battery to finish.
We used
charging.
to race the cars.
Yeah.
Like the RC10 or something like that.
Yeah, I
Flash.
My dad and I built. We did radio. We did a boat. We did a car. We did a plane. Kind of like every Christmas, we always got one that was like, like a major kit,
big project
we had to put together.
I had a nitro Miss Budweiser when I was in college.
Yeah. That stuff's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And that plane, I got rid of it, but I might get another one. The power with lithium was just so much better, and to have the ability to not have to deal with the gas and all that other kind of stuff, it was such a hassle, and I don't think I would have messed with a gas plane.
Well, especially when you're 10 or 12 years old.
Yeah, that was impossible.
You can't go down to the hobby shop by yourself and buy a gallon of nitro.
You're probably right. Yeah, I never even tried. But I wasn't going to the hobby shop by myself anyway because it was, a car ride. But I'm seeing so much go on with this, and what about? I know you guys are mostly doing trolling motors, but what would be like another application, let's say non-boat related, that you guys would be doing?
Oh wow, that's the one thing about our company. We do golf cart batteries,
right?
Pallet jacks, autonomous robots, solar. We do solar walls.
Yeah.
What else? Computer backups, like we've got computer backups for the big mainframes, things like that.
Yeah, if you're running a server or something like that and you can't have it go down.
We've got batteries for food trucks.
Wow.
We got an enclosed system that helps run the food trucks. Anywhere you can put lithium, we really have an application. And one thing that's really cool about lithium battery power is we have the ability to custom design. Like if you come in and have a specific application,
right?
My engineers will sit down with you, get all the power specs, and not even gonna pretend to talk like I know what the specs are because it's above my head.
Yeah,
I'm just a pretty face. Oh wait, we got Bone TV. I can't even lie anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like, oh, good, we're on camera. Awesome. Let me put this microphone over my nose or something. So,
but yeah, we can custom do anything. I got a customer right now. He's got a Bad Boy buggy. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
No.
So Bad Boy came out, I bet 15, 20 years ago, and it was like an off-road golf cart. They were way more sophisticated today, but basically they were a golf cart that was four-wheel drive and electric.
Oh, wow, okay.
But they're a 72-volt system.
Oh, so that's almost like double what a normal golf cart would have.
Because they got, it's four-wheel drive, it's off-road, it's a little...
Or like an extra 60, 70% at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're building a battery for him right now. And if it works, we may...
How fast do they think that thing will go?
So the volts, it just depends on the motor. You can put all the volts you want in it, but if you don't have the motor capacity, And that's the extent of my technical knowledge on the motors, you know what I mean? But just adding volts doesn't necessarily add speed. But in a traditional golf cart where you get your speed is you save over 300 pounds of weight when you switch from lead acid.
I mean, I've seen videos of these newer golf carts that are like, able to do a wheelie.
Oh, yeah, and those guys are going with different motors, and then that's when it really comes into play.
Well, and this isn't the, electrical show with Gray and Don, but I've been, voltage obviously is like your bandwidth really for, your ability to have, power coming through all at one time, right? If I were to say, and that's, so like you have that capability at 72 volts, I mean, to just run a lot of power all at once.
Quickly.
Yeah. And so I think that would be like, if you had a strong motor in there, then you could have a lot of torque.
Yeah, we have one. We actually have a golf cart in our showroom that I don't know how we acquired it, but it's kind of funny looking. Looks like something you'd see like in the villages or something. It's like a little round and got a little trunk on it, but
yeah,
it's a 57-mile-an-hour golf cart.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's. I don't want to be in a 57-mile-an-hour.
We were going to use
cart.
it at the King of the Beach to shuttle people around, but I'm like, no, that's too. No, we're leaving this one here.
I'm sure you can detune it or something like that. There's got to be a governor you can program on the motor or something like that. But it needs that. The last thing we need is a 60-mile-an-hour golf cart at King of the Beach. We need 5-mile-an-hour golf carts at King of the Beach. And, we use, for the carts that we use at King of the Beach, they're typically, we go through Sunbelt Rental on those. And they're great, but they're, the problem is you're just driving it and you got the crowd walking in front of you and you're trying to make sure that nobody just walks out in front of you and you're trying to make as much noise as you can.
Yep.
Right. So like a lot of the golf carts we're using with them are diesel, and they're loud. We want them to be loud.
Yeah.
We want people to know they're there.
Too bad Harley doesn't make a golf cart
anymore,
anymore, right?
We want to do, honestly, yeah. So the louder it is, the better for us because, the King of the Beach is already loud.
Yeah, so many people.
And that's coming up. We're going to be doing that at the end of April, King of the Beach. If you're thinking about fishing it, it's only, it's less than $300 to enter. If you're an Old Salt member, there's some discounts there as well. You can get those details at oldsaltfishing.org. I don't like to try and give them out on the radio because I usually make a mistake and then somebody will be at the entry line going, well, Gray said on the radio that it's going to be, and I'm like, I don't know, dude.
I may have.
I didn't read it. I was just looking at the picture in my mind, and the discussions we have at board meetings and stuff like that. But King of the Beach is coming up. It's our signature event with the Old Salt Fishing Foundation. It'll be there at Rock Park. A couple things that we're working on to try and make it the best King of the Beach ever. Obviously is we want as many boats to enter as we possibly can. We know this area was really hurt by hurricanes, so the money that we are raising, we gave over $30,000 to hurricane. We actually did our own hurricane relief fund, and we were able to help people in the hospitality industry. I almost said injury, hospitality industry, and also just people who have homes and businesses out at the beach. We were able to help them pay some bills and do some things for them because it's been very tough out there for people, and it's kind of like a ghost town still in a lot of areas. And that's why I also. My own solar. That's why I'm talking about this permitting thing. My own solar project that I've been working on for a very long time now, 5 months, has been sitting there in permitting. There's nothing else it's waiting for. Obviously, it's all the plans are done, everything's ready to go. As soon as they say yes on the permit, we can get it installed in a couple of days. And so I started to look into it, and I. At first, I was like, I obviously want this to get installed. My homeowner wants it, and it's all ready to go. He's getting some batteries with it as well. And, he wants the backup power before the hurricane season starts again, right? And, great, standard motivation, right? You want to make sure you don't run out of power when the hurricanes come through. And so, I started just doing some research on what's going on. And I mean, it started to become more of like what the hell? You know, like, how are we letting this happen to people?
You'd think there'd be a way to bring in outside help.
Yes,
and
and that's
just clerks. I mean,
absolutely.
Where's the logjam? What's the problem? Why can't
I know?
I mean, it's paperwork.
That's what scares me about any type of government ran stuff is, obviously the people working there, they're not going to make any more money regardless of whether they do 10 permits today or 100 permits today. And I understand that. So I get where there's, maybe it's tough for them to want to do all that work. And what I'm hearing is that a lot of people, and this is just from sources in the industry within roofing and solar and home improvement and all that kind of stuff, that, a lot of these people want to quit. They are getting worked really hard. They don't get anything extra for it. And they just want to say, hey, I do this. I'm out.
Well,
right.
Maybe we take some of these people that weren't working that Doge is getting rid of, and we bring them down here and put them in the permanent office.
I would say that would work, except I think there's a lack of faith in those people that might
they are going to work
because they have they've caused some problems where they were, and that could be a big reason as to why they're not welcome back. It's really really wild times right now within the government, but it's just getting people back in their homes, I think, is just it ought to be such a priority.
Be number one priority. We shouldn't be worrying about baseball stadiums and all this other
absolutely.
stuff.
I'm not saying that I don't support the Rays. That's great, for us to have a Major League Baseball team. And, ever since Chris Shearer was on a couple months ago, and we talked about what's going on with the Rays, I've only followed it just, being within earshot of the radio and stuff like that. I haven't really paid so much attention to it. But
Thursday, the Rays just came out and completely crapped the deal for the stadium and walked from it.
Well, they kind of, I hate to say it, but the city council and the county and everything like that left it wide open to have that done to them. Yep. And so, it sounds like it's going to be a giant waste of money. So we'll see what the Rays do. I also heard that the commissioner of baseball is really trying to put pressure on the Rays to sell to someone.
He needs to. This is going to sound silly when I say it, but Sternberg is only worth around $800 million.
It's not enough.
Which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but
I know we'll never have that, but it's not enough when you're trying to build a 1.4.
I'm at like $750. Yeah, maybe $750.
But that's not enough to.
Yeah.
Yeah, $750 is probably closer.
Right.
It's not enough to build a $1.4 billion stadium.
Right.
Because the guy's not going to take all his assets and put it in his part of the stadium.
Right. And I don't blame him for that.
I don't either.
To leverage yourself out there for, I would be wanting to probably offload the team too. I think they're valuing it at right around $1 billion.
No, well, it'll probably sell around 1.4, I think.
Okay.
We're
getting the fingers in the air from Isaiah that
he wants to.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah, we're going to be coming up on a commercial break here in just a minute. But guys, also the last thing I'll talk about before the commercial break, and we'll get into more what's going on with fishing regulations, what's going on with lithium battery power, and what's going on with Suzuki Mastery Engine Center. All the specials that are going on. Of course, King of the Beach, we have some raffles and big giveaways that happen for that we'll be talking about as well. But check out our YouTube, right? We're trying to get to, and I meant to kind of put this in a box, but our YouTube, we're trying to get, if we can get to 100 subscribers, we're going to be giving away a 5-pack of tickets to possibly win the 200 horsepower Suzuki, right? That we will be giving away at the fall King of the Beach. So let's get those subscribers going on. But I'm getting to wrap it up, B. So we'll see you on the other side of the commercial break, guys. Thank you, and stay tuned. We got more to go over.
And now it's time for Tampa Bay Fishing Radio, presented by Rivard Buick GMC in Tampa on
the Tampa Bay Fishing Radio, everybody. It's still Saturday morning. Thanks for waking up with us. If you're getting out there today, be careful. The weather's going to turn up. It's going to be, 25, 30 miles an hour in some areas. So it's going to be blowing big seas. And, been on and off like that past few weeks. That's just the way it's going to be. We've had some nice weather windows. I've got Don from Lithium Battery Power here in studio with me. And I've got Isaiah on the boards.
How's it going, man?
Good.
You know what? We should have an after show because, I love the topics that we talk off air is sometimes.
Yeah,
more
I agree.
intriguing.
It's there's things that come up when we're talking off air that we'd have to be somewhat cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Because names get named and and
Zach.
things get said. Yeah. So we'd have to be a little careful with that. But I will say, it's just we were talking about obviously operating boats and the things that can happen to you if you're under the influence, and we always tell people to not drink if they're in charge of the boat, and what can happen to your ability to drive a boat, or if you have a captain's license, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just really we're coming up to the summertime, and we're coming up to a time when people are going to be probably a little less safe, right? And we always worry about what happens with people that are drinking on a boat, operating outboard motors, all things that can just happen, so quickly, and ruin someone's life, or even kill somebody, severely injure someone. So just always be aware of that kind of stuff. And if you're out on the water, these weekends are coming up where a lot of boaters are going to be out there. One of the biggest things that I'll say is if anybody's out of your boat for any reason, there's really no reason you should have your motors running.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Captain in South Florida just got arrested for BUI and manslaughter, had clients in the water and backed over a lady.
Yeah. I mean, that's terrible. And, that's probably one of the worst ways you could go also. So just always, when we talk about safety also, I mean, this poor spear fisherman out there knows what he's doing, very experienced guy, has a lot of, and had a lot of safety measures in place, right?
Accidents do happen.
And sometimes things, compound, and the whole thing turns against you really quick. So just make sure that everything you're doing is, just going to be as safe as possible. I always also recommend, never going offshore by yourself. I'm just not a big fan of that. I think that it's kind of, if you can't convince someone to go offshore with you, then you must have a pretty interesting personality. Like if you can't say, hey man, just come with me, I'll pay for everything, let's go fishing.
I got a boat. Usually is all you have to say.
Yeah. You normally can get someone to say, yeah, what the hell, I'll go, right?
I don't have too many friends, and I can get plenty of people to go fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to go fishing.
Yeah, I know. We've been
You
trying
work
to get
too
you
much.
fishing. I know, Isaiah. You got to quit a job or something. Let's go fishing.
That's
know?
going to happen naturally anyway. So.
Yeah. But yeah, if you can't get a friend of yours to come out on a boat with you, I mean, that's weird. But, never go out by yourself. I'm really not a fan of that. Obviously if you're running around the bay or whatever it is, that's different. But, also, a lot of guys will also run with, those life jackets that auto inflate and stuff like that. Those are pretty cool. But, the water's not forgiving. It's not like a car where you can just step out. I mean, you walk home. The other day, Zach had a problem with his Range Rover and had to step out of it.
He was on his way to meet me.
Yeah, and
he showed up 15 minutes late, which was out of character for him. And
yeah,
I seen him get out of an Uber. I'm like,
yeah, what the hell?
what in the world?
But
it is a Range Rover. And they spend a lot of time on the side of the road.
Yeah, we're not going to disparage any automotive brands on here, but if I was going to be looking for a vehicle, I would definitely be probably headed into maybe the GMC range. Rivard Buick GMC has been a sponsor of the show for a very long time, and much more reliable than a a lot of other vehicles out there. We're not going to say any brand names or anything like that, but great vehicles. And the Buick lineup has really gotten good looking lately. I think they've, especially with the way they're lit up and everything. Sometimes I'm like, man, is that a Buick?
Did I hear that Buick's coming out doing something where they're changing a model every year? Or somebody was saying it, or I was reading it, that they got a new design something, and I want to say they're changing. Like, you remember back in the 70s and the 60s, cars had major changes every year.
Almost every year, yeah.
You could look at a car and tell what year it was.
Yeah,
right?
I know. They'd be like, that was a 67. That's a 64.
They changed the taillights. They changed the headlight. They changed whatever. And I want to say I read something that Buick's got some kind of program coming out where they're going to kind of try to bring their Buicks back to where they get that flair every year.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that, but that's an interesting way to look at it. And obviously, if you're be towing a boat or something like that, I think a lot of guys are really, our core audience is probably going to be looking at maybe a diesel truck, or something like that. That's going to be where, especially if you got like anything above maybe like a mid-20s boat, a diesel truck will just make things so much easier for you. I can't imagine if you were to tow a 30-foot boat to the Keys with a gas truck. I mean, that'd just be really rough on the truck.
Be a long trip from gas station to gas station.
Yes, you'd be spending some money on some gas. Diesel is like 35% more efficient than gasoline, if you didn't know that already. But anyway, so in the last segment, we talked a lot about lithium battery power. We're really glad to have you guys on board.
We're glad to be here.
Yeah,
show's great. And obviously, I'm friends and follower for a long time, so I know the power of the show, and we're glad to be here for sure.
Yeah. So, and if you're looking at repowering your trolling motors on your boat, I would check out lithium battery power. That's going to be probably their number one application for for fishing and boating. I know that they're working on some starter battery stuff, but lithium is kind of a strange.
Yeah, there's some issues with voltage and stuff, and we're working on it. We have some applications for smaller boats.
Right.
Mostly just we have a voltage regulator that we recommend, and the biggest thing is an alternator or a stator doesn't provide a clean level amount of return power. Your voltage could be 11, it could be 14, it could be 16, it could be 15, and that's as it's charging throughout the day. And lithium does not like
so you need some sort of controller to manage that voltage.
Correct. Yeah, so we put a voltage regulator on there, then we can manage what goes back into it.
But I guess you'd have some advantages, like, for instance, the battery would be it would last longer.
The battery would last longer. You get a little more power out of it.
More starts out of it before it started to fail you.
Less weight.
Especially
in like these skiffs and stuff.
Yes.
Anybody with John boats, skiffs, any of that stuff where you're really trying to get skinny or save weight, that lithium, it helps out a bunch.
That makes sense. Yeah, because if you're on a big offshore boat, it really wouldn't make a difference to you.
No, the big offshore boats where we really are strong is the trolling motors and house batteries.
Yeah.
You start getting triple, quad engine boats, you don't want to have to put 3-4 regulators on there, and I always say just right now stay with the AGM batteries everybody's using, but put a lithium in, because I have an on the go charger that I can charge that house battery, and then run all your electronics off of lithium.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course
cleaner power as well.
We're talking about obviously I've been in the solar industry for about 8 years now, and we talk about, backup power for people's homes and emergency power, and I have several different battery brands I work with, but you guys are entering that market as well. And I think it'll be good to have some competition there, because, it seems like some of these battery brands have been, just been there forever. Right. Yep. And, and they've made some improvements, but, I think that there needs to be some less expensive, smaller applications that can do the basics. Right now, there's very expensive applications, and there's a few solutions that work really great, but there's very expensive solutions that that sometimes can only do the basics, right? So I think if we can get to a point where if you're able to run your refrigerator, I think that's one of the biggest things. If you're able to run your refrigerator, keep
That's a
your food
big loss
safe.
when in a storm is the amount of food that people, between the loss of the cost of the food and then you can't eat the food. So
Right. And if you,
it's a double smack.
if the grocery stores aren't open and you can't get any food and your refrigerator's gone bad, that can be kind of an emergency in itself. That's a whole nother level of emergency if you're not eating food. That's not good.
That's not good.
Yeah, you need that. But, obviously, I think there's some solutions we can discuss at some point off air for people that are just looking for some basic battery backup and maybe, even maybe I don't want to commit the company to anything, but if there was, easy ways to get that kind of stuff going for people in these emergency situations. Now, one of the things y'all had mentioned is that you're going to be dedicating battery backup for people
we have
during
a
disasters.
power box.
Mm-hmm.
It should be on the ground here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
And we're going to reserve 20% of our inventory and hold on to it, not for sale. And we're going to use it, God forbid we have another situation, which we will. We're in Florida. We're going to have another hurricane. We're going to have another storm. And we're going to use that 20% of that inventory for community outreach for people that need power stations.
Yeah.
And that's just part of what we do is giving back to the community. I mean, we've been in Clearwater, and it's funny, most people don't realize this, but there's only one lithium battery company that's been around longer than us.
Wow.
We've been around over 10 years. So all the ones that seem to be like they've been around forever have all come into play since we've been in the market.
Okay.
Our biggest challenge has been that being a true technology company, we've spent a lot of time revamping, and we design and build our batteries.
Right.
And we provide chargers. We partner with a company that builds our chargers, and they build them to spec for our batteries.
Okay.
So our company we haven't had a huge growth because we haven't been concentrated on growth as much as we have technology. Some of our competitors that appear to be the guys in the market right now are struggling. They're having technical problems. They're, because they have no quality control. They have no engineers. So they get a bad batch of batteries in because they just ordered what was available. It puts them in a bad spot.
Yeah, I mean it's got to be tough if you
it's a hard
don't have
market.
any, like you said, quality control. And I think that's one of the things that we've been going through for maybe the last 10 or 15 years with a lot of products that maybe even come from China or something like that. Just the inconsistency. And the thing is that I'm not necessarily opposed to Chinese manufacturing. I mean, obviously everybody's got an iPhone or whatever it is, and that thing is definitely made in China.
Yeah.
But it's I'm sure Apple, with the money and the weight they can throw around, probably has a little more control over what goes on with their product compared to, let's say, a startup battery company, right?
1,000%.
Yeah. So
and that's the hard part is, it's funny with lithium, China won't take it back. So if they
shipping lithium and all that other kind of stuff is very hard.
Yeah, it's a dangerous good.
Yeah.
It's expensive to ship. And the Chinese government has a law. They do not accept lithium back into their country.
Interesting.
So if they send you bad batteries.
But isn't it recyclable? Can't you recycle lithium in some way?
You can, but they don't want it back. So
Okay.
that way they don't have to take it back, right? So
Yeah.
if they fail, there's a cost to recapture it.
Right.
So when the government says we don't take it back, they're like, sorry, we don't take it back. So now they have no cost to recapture. Now, you may not have to pay for a bad batch of batteries, but now you got to pay to get rid of them.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah,
That's a mess. And that's, I don't know. I know there's special processes to getting rid of stuff like that, and I'm not sure, not familiar with that, but I know that, I know that there's definitely some things there. You have to be cautious with the environment because they can be pretty detrimental to the environment. But, guys, we'll talk about we did talk about the weather some in the last segment, but just, the next few days, probably not a good day to go offshore. If you're going to go inshore fishing, I'd probably try to hug an island. We're going to be looking at 25, 30 mile an hour winds. That's going to be going on until about Wednesday. Wednesday looks like, you might have a little weather window there to get offshore. Looking at about 2 foot seas out of the St. Pete offshore buoy at that time. So that's not bad, especially out there. And I'm sure, hopefully it might even lay down beyond that. Just, a lot of times when there's a front happening, the forecast is built up even on the mild days afterwards. Then it turns back on again, right? You're looking at Thursday afternoon, goes right back to blowing 15 to 25 miles an hour, back to that 4, 5, 6, 7 foot seas. Just days that I would not go very far, if at all. So just be aware of that. If you're loading your boat up today, it's probably not a good day to go past the islands, because it's going to be a little rough.
Good week to do some maintenance.
Yeah, it's a good week to do some maintenance. Maybe if you're thinking about getting your boat repowered, you may want to check out Mastery Engine Center. And get yourself a new set of Suzukis or something like that. And of course, for King of the Beach, they're one of our biggest sponsors with the Old Salt Fishing Foundation, and we're going to be giving away at the Fall King a 200 horsepower Suzuki outboard on a raffle, and then also for each King of the Beach, we do the single engine division, where we are going to be, you win for entering a fish in the single engine division and having the largest fish caught in that division. You win a Suzuki outboard. So that's an amazing prize and a wonderful, wonderful donation from Suzuki and Mastery Engine Center. On that raffle, like we talked about in the previous segment, we are doing a YouTube channel for the show. So if you missed the show, or if you only just caught it now and you want to listen to the earlier parts of it, you can check it out on our YouTube at Tampa Bay Fishing Radio. And all you got to, and you can see my big goofy ass, looking at,
big goofy
yeah, me and Don and Isaiah, so, we're beautiful, and you do want to see us as much as you can. But, just check out our YouTube. We are giving away raffle tickets. We're doing a package where if you can win. So once we hit, I think I said 100 subscribers. Did I say 100 subscribers?
100, yes, sir.
When we hit 100 subscribers on the YouTube, we're going to give away a 5-pack of the tickets for the Suzuki raffle, right? The thing that's really nice about that raffle is it is a slightly more expensive ticket. So, it's not going to have like a million people entering it, right? There's a good chance that if you had 5 tickets, that you could win that motor, right? So that's going to be coming up in the fall, but we want to give those tickets out. We're going to come up with more giveaways and things like that as time goes on. We're kind of dipping our toe in the water with the YouTube thing, but I think it'll be great for everybody, especially if you missed the show. You can go back and watch it, and of course you get to see me, you get to see Zach, you get to see Don very often, you obviously get to see Isaiah every week. So
you say that in such a monotone voice.
Well,
It's like,
yeah,
of course,
Isaiah every week.
Yeah,
Isaiah.
Hey, Gray, what is the YouTube name of the channel?
Tampa Bay Fishing Radio, just like the radio show.
Tampa Bay.
And it's so fresh with YouTube that it barely even comes up when you search it, because YouTube's algorithm probably figured out that, I said something about
organic vanilla.
Yeah, something. They probably have something in there that says we can't have Gray saying that, so we're going to hide it. Maybe that somebody that pays YouTube a lot of money, to sponsor them or whatever it is, has a conflicting interest.
No doubt. So
Yeah.
how's the golf game going?
Golf is good, man. Actually played yesterday, had one of the worst rounds I've had in probably 5 years. Shot an 82 or something like that, which is like a...
I shot 82 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, on
the
9
front
holes.
9.
Yeah. I know, everybody. That's a classic golf joke. But golf is good, man. It's just been working on some things, and also my elbow's a little injured right now. I injured my elbow, ironically not from golf. I think I overuse it from golf, but we were catching some redfish maybe Saturday last week, and it was, I hook up to a redfish, and I normally, I always like to kind of have my arms out when I'm catching a fish. Just gives me a little more power against the fish and stuff like that. And then, my elbow just started to kill me while I was catching it. I had to press my elbow up against my body. So I've not been playing really great just because it's slightly injured. It's getting better.
You get a cortisone shot yet?
No, I'm nowhere near that.
Oh.
I mean, it was like the first couple days, it was like it was tough to even wash my hair, right? So I had to do it like with my left hand. But from there,
it's easy to wash my hair
because you don't have any. Yeah, I know.
Too late for me.
Too late for me.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's getting better. But the elbow, the redfish for some reason just got my elbow. So now, like in certain positions and stuff like that, it kind of bites me a little bit, and I forget, like because it doesn't hurt all the time. So like at the Old Salt meeting, we're moving chairs and putting stuff away and setting stuff up and everything like that. And there was a couple times when I was like, man, this is really killing my elbow. And it just it's like a shooting pain that just makes you let go. Yeah. It'll make you drop something.
Is that considered redfish elbow now?
Yeah, I got redfish elbow. Weird though, because I've caught a million fish and I've never had my arms or anything ever bother me while I was catching a fish. So it's like overuse from golf, and then the combination with that, with the fishing, it just
sounds like you need to work more, play less.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. But I got an electric walking cart, which has been really cool. And that's a lot of fun to play golf and walk with the cart that follows you around and stuff like that. It's pretty neat. I mean, I do like riding in a golf cart, but the electric walking cart's really nice.
Room for your cooler.
It actually has a bag that is a cooler that's insulated in the cart.
Keep your waters warm.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Cold.
Yeah,
cold.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah,
I wouldn't want that.
Keep your waters warm. It probably would keep them warm if there was no ice, or if they were already warm. Yes, it probably would help them stay warm just as much as they would say cold. But yeah, the other thing, of course, is if you're not a member of Tampa Offshore Fishing, please check it out. Please get involved with Tampa Offshore Fishing if you're looking to learn more about fishing. We do have a lot of really great fishermen in there that are pretty forthcoming with knowledge, right? So I think that's always really important. Right now, it seems like a lot of people are on red grouper. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of in the area that are getting caught, you're starting to see some wahoo come through, from like maybe 120 to 160 feet. That's, when you're red grouper fishing, obviously right now you're on that 20 fathom line break. I think that's until March 31st, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to look at that really quick.
Yeah, look that up.
But pretty sure that's what it is. We always use fish rules to check. Everything.
They do a great job updating everything.
They do. This whole thing with fish rules was brought on. Aubrey Arrington, Rob Arrington's brother, is one of the founders of it. That's Deer Meat for Dinner.
Yep.
Right. And, I'm glad someone did something with it, because if you go to the FWC website,
it's terrible.
You have to almost be able to read backwards in order to know what the
Hey, can I mention something real quick? I hadn't had my Old Salts membership in a long time.
Okay.
And I went to the meeting Thursday. I saw you there. That's something that I think people really need to get more involved in. I mean, that little meeting was extremely informational.
Yeah, it was.
Krabby and
Dave
Zaleski
yep.
put on a grunt fishing seminar.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much that, we need to learn how to catch grunts. They're pretty easy, but just the tips and techniques and the way they explain bottom and what's around the bottom. And I really think that more people need to get involved and get involved with the Old Salts Foundation. Little meetings like that are really cool. Like,
it is. We have great raffles and stuff like that too. That's one of the things we do. We have wonderful sponsors that bring stuff to us. Dogfish, Aquatic Nutrition,
Ocean Tamer.
Obviously, just so many local businesses. Fish, so Fisherman's Ideal Supply House. I mean, there's so many. Mirror, obviously Suzuki, and Mastery Engine Center. I mean, there's just the list goes on. And if you ever wonder who sponsors us, you can always go to oldsaltfishing.org, and that's going to be on there.
And not only that, if I may interject, the end of the year Old Salt party,
the Christmas party,
it is phenomenal.
Yeah, the food's always good. It's a lot of fun. Once again, the raffles we do are really good. Tito's vodka, Tito's gives us we do a bunch of vodka giveaways. Please don't drink it while you're at the meetings or at our events. That's for home consumption. They'll be, please go home before you open that bottle is my point. But anyway, yes, it is till March 31st on the 20 fathom break.
Oh, perfect.
Yep. So that's red grouper. So, that 20 fathom break there's a line out there. And it is a little bit further than 120 feet. But it's on chart. I don't exactly know how to find the line. I'd have to look it up, and I've never really been so concerned about where that is. I've just always kind of stayed within 120 feet.
So I was going to say, explain that rule to people so they understand that it's
there's
someone
someone drew a line on a map, and they call it the 20 fathom break, right? And you are not supposed to go beyond it to red grouper fish. If you're going to harvest red grouper, then you can't harvest red grouper from beyond that break. And that's every year from February 1st to March 31st. It's just a thing that somebody came up with. I don't know what it's for. I guess it has to do with the red grouper spawn. That's a lot of times the case with any of these seasons and stuff like that. You'll notice that they're trying to avoid the spawn. You don't want to have things in season when they're spawning because they're going to be, that's when everybody catches all the fish, right? The fish are going to be hungry. They're going to be fired up, but they're trying to replenish the nutrients that they put out when they spawned. Obviously, they're making genetic material, right? So that's a good way to put it.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, they're making genetic material. So that's how they spawn, just like how humans spawn. And, I mean, I'm tired after I spawn, right? And I'm hungry, right?
Maybe
so the fish,
genetic material.
Yeah, after I make some genetic material, I tend to get pretty hungry. So anyway.
Yeah, turn the car back right. This is going left, bro.
Yeah. So, I'm probably going to get called by Zach on that one. Hey, what the hell was that? But,
he's on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
He can't hear you.
Yeah, hopefully not. But my point is, it makes it easier to catch them. It makes them more likely to feed. And I think they're trying to give the fish a break so they're not, just over harvested, right? And that's I think the biggest thing about it. But I'm not sure. I mean, that's what I've read about it in the past. I'm not 100% on that. Someone probably might know it better than me. It's just. The thing that's really gotten scary to me lately is that I never really know what a scientist even does anymore because, a lot of times they just get funded by whoever wants them to say a certain thing. And that runs us into issues about what even anything ever means again.
I was talking to one of the scientists involved at that trash cleanup we did, the awards dinner.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly how he put it, but basically, I thought it was wild. The reason that our recreational limits are managed the way they are, one of them is right now they figure that there is 3 million recreational trips per year. So anytime a boat goes out a pass with a fishing rod in it, that's considered a recreational trip. And I asked him,
now, are they counting the actual people that go? I guess because you'd have bag limits per person. So are they saying if you have a 6-pack charter that you're counting those 6 anglers?
Well, a 6-pack charter is a commercial
trip each.
So it's an average number of anglers per boat.
Okay.
Times the boat leaves the marina or leaves the port. And I asked him, I said, well, how in the world can we actually calculate a number like that? Do you have someone at every opening into the Gulf of Mexico?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, how we calculate? I go 3 million trips. I go, if you're calculating off of 3 million, I said, how many trips I've gone on that we haven't brought anything back legal?
Yeah.
I'm not a very good fisherman, but I mean,
Well,
I mean, it happens, right?
yeah.
And how many people go out and then they don't find bait, they don't, whatever. I mean, you can't just say a guy leaving with fishing poles is considered a recreational trip, and we're going to figure that he's going to catch, one fish of.
Or they're going to get a limit each.
Yeah,
or
it
like
was
that.
just the most absurd way to calculate.
Yeah.
And then, then he had a little backpedal shuffle with, well, that's just one of the ways we do it. And I said, hey, I know some guys with a show that would love to talk to you. Would you be interested in explaining to the public
Right.
this, so maybe there wouldn't be so much angst to us
Yeah.
about how you guys are figuring this and how we can't go fishing in our expensive boats and with our expensive rods, and we have all this in the garage and can't go fishing because of whatever this calculation is. And
Yeah.
and he wanted no part of it.
Yeah, there's been some outreach from the Gulf Council and NOAA and stuff like that, and of course Zach is on the Gulf Council with the data collection advisory panel and everything like that. And it's a whole bunch of, to me, it's a whole bunch of gobbledygook. You know what I mean? I just when Zach starts talking about the stuff that they talk about, I can't even understand or hear what they're saying. And I don't mean to be I guess obtuse to it or whatever, or unwilling to hear it. But at the same time, it's just so complex, and I just don't really think it has to be. And there's, once again, we get down to this, well, who funds this, right? Who funds and what are, the scientists are telling us something, but, what are they paid to say? And that's what I really get scared about with science. And, the other example of that, of course, has been, and I'm, obviously if this offends you, I'm sorry, but I mean, so much of it's happened with climate change and geology, right? And, one of my dad's really good friends when I was growing up was a geologist, and he, talked about how so many of his friends, all their studies were funded by the government, and how they would all come to different conclusions, but they were all paid to say the same thing, right? And it was just so common. And he was like, I can't even talk to my friends that I went to college with, because like we almost get into a fist fight about the science, because they're paid to say all this crazy stuff that I know is completely the opposite of the truth.
Well, and they'll never produce the documents to support what they say.
Well, and there's supposed to be this whole other process that goes on with this, where you have conflict of interest reports, right? So like it comes down to like who's paying this for these studies, and is there is there anything conflicting out there that we should also present at the same time, and all that stuff. And apparently with climate change, there's so much about it is never brought into light, right? They're just unwilling to show anybody any of that stuff. But one thing that's been interesting to me, and I'm not saying that there is no climate change or that, that humans haven't had an effect on the earth. I don't know, right? Because I'm not a scientist. What I will say is that, we've been working on it as a problem since probably the 1960s, and it continues according to a whole bunch of politicians. All it's done is gotten worse. And, they used to say that every 5 years that the world was going to end. Well, they've had to extend that out to like 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, because that now goes beyond a couple of generations where people are saying to themselves, well, hey, 5 years went by and the world didn't end. So why do I care about this? Nothing really even changed.
Think about
right?
when we were kids, all the things. We're going to run out of oil.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they told me that in first grade that we were going to run out of oil, and I came home from school.
Melt
Yeah, I came home from school and I was all stressed out, and my parents were like, no, that's not true, and all that kind of stuff. But they start working the kids on this when they're 5 years old, first grade, kindergarten, start talking about, well, fossil fuels came from dinosaurs. Well, they don't come from dinosaurs. Fossil fuels they're being made right now, right? Fossil fuels are, anything that's decomposing in the ground is a fossil fuel, and it's going to eventually turn into oil, crude oil. And crude oil is a naturally occurring substance. It's been around on the earth for billions of years. So it just doesn't really make any sense that we would run out of it anytime soon. I'm sure that we probably consume more at this time than the earth has ever consumed on its own. But I'm also sure that, there's been natural oil fires and things like that have started from possibly oil coming out of the ground and a lightning strike and just burning for, something like that burns indefinitely until it basically runs out. I mean, that could go on. Those capping those oil wells like back in, the
80s.
Yeah, Desert Storm and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that was a feat,
yeah.
To get them to stop.
There's some place
stop
called
the fire.
Fire or some kind of name like that somewhere, and it was basically an oil deposit, and someone threw a flare in it thinking they were just going to burn the oil off, and it's 20 years later, it's still burning.
Yes, so there's actually one.
I forgot what that
Oh my gosh, isn't it? It's like Devil's something.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's,
and it's a hole in the ground.
Hole in the ground that's on fire,
and it's on fire, and it's been on fire for like 50 years or something like that. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it, but
we need to put that fire out because we're going to run out of oil.
That's right. We're running out of oil. But that's what they told us. But the other thing that happened was, back in the 70s, it was global cooling. Then in the 80s and 90s, it was global warming, right? Then 2010 happened. We had a polar vortex, and it immediately changed to climate change, right? Which is all-encompassing, anything that goes on with the climate is a problem, and we caused it. And the only solution is more regulations and more taxes.
And the problem is the whole existence of Earth.
Yeah,
the climate has been changing.
It's going to continue to change.
Mother Earth does.
Exactly. So I'm not, of course, I'm probably going to be, now I'm a climate denier and all this other kind of stuff. But
get your tinfoil hat.
I just know that my point is we've been working on this stuff for the better part of a century, and we've gotten zero results out of our government for it. And if they can't stop it, I don't know who will, because we've spent trillions of dollars. We've accepted all sorts of new taxes, fees, regulations, and whatnot. And now we have microplastics in our blood. And, just it seems like every idea that's ever been presented in relation to this has caused further harm. So,
Al Gore's become a billionaire over it.
Yes. There's definitely some money to be made in the climate change world. It seems like it continues to happen. But my point is, we are, we're getting into this whole climate change conversation, but I worry sometimes because NOAA is also one of the biggest researchers of climate change, right? And of course they do a lot of, it's weather, right? It's atmospheric and everything like that. So they try to, they put out a lot of studies and things like that about the atmosphere. And they also help manage the fisheries. So I think that we're being injected into the fisheries management, the climate agenda.
1,000%.
Right? And that bothers me because, one of the things that I think they look at, and you were talking about this guy who, says it's 3 million trips and everything like that. But one of the things that they look at is, there's got to be somebody out there that's saying, well, these people are burning gas to go kill these fish.
Yep.
Right? So they're polluting.
Down.
Right? So how can we stop that? Because we have to stop climate change.
Yep.
And, the muffler on a boat, boats don't have catalytic converters, for instance, right? I don't think they do. Do they have a catalytic converter on a boat engine?
No, they're trying to implement they've got the off-road tractors with emissions standards now.
Right.
And they're trying to implement it into the yachts.
Okay. So, I mean, that's it's really ironic because I'm in the solar industry, right? I mean, I do roofs as well, but I'm in the solar industry. But I believe in solar as a money-saving endeavor, or if you want to have emergency backup power, if you have a battery system or something like that, right? And those are the main benefits. And yes, it does limit carbon emissions. And, some people say that's great. I don't know if it's good or not, right? I don't know if it makes a difference. But yes, if you feel like you're helping the environment as you go solar, that's a wonderful thing as well. And I think, yes, you probably are some. Yeah. And so Isaiah's giving me the 3 minutes, so we're coming up on the end of the show.
Well, I think any little thing you do helps, but you can't change a whole like the electric car thing, right?
Right.
Being lithium battery power, we have a lot of electric cars in our fleet, company cars and such. And yeah, they're great for what
Right.
they are. They're not going to save the world,
No.
but they're great. Around town, running from here to here. Yeah, there no emissions, what have you. But there's emissions in building the car. There's emissions in getting the electricity to recharge the car.
Well, I saw a point that was really, and sorry to cut you off, but we only got a second left. I saw a point that was really interesting, which is, about 5 years ago or 3 years ago, they were trying to mandate electric cars. Now they're going to Tesla dealerships and burning them down.
Right.
Right. I mean, so that's why nobody
drive
pays
a
attention
Tesla,
to
they're
these people
shooting at you,
anymore.
yeah.
Everybody's over it, right? And that's
100%.
why you see a 76% of people saw the speech from Trump, his address to Congress, and approved of what he was saying.
Yep.
Because these people have lost their minds, and no matter what they do, it's going to be violent.
Yep.
Whatever side it
Their
is. But they'll
responsibility
change
is violence.
sides as long as it favors violence is basically what's happened.
100%.
And that's what's really scary. But yeah, you're right. I mean, electric cars, and I think electric cars are cool, and I think Teslas are cool. And
They're fun. They're fun. I drive one around, and
Yeah.
it's quick. It's fast. It's
Well, the
cool.
technology it has, regardless of being
The
electric, is
radar. You
amazing.
see every car around you on a screen.
Yeah,
They're cool.
yeah.
But-
And I think the Cybertruck is cool, and I think that for me, I think I'd probably rather have a diesel truck.
Yeah.
Right. If I was going to go out and buy a truck, if I was going to tow a boat around and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you're not towing a
go get
30-foot
GMC.
boat to the Keys with a Cybertruck.
Or probably
Rivian,
not. You'd
so.
probably run yourself.
Yeah.
But Tucker Carlson was gifted one for a while to test out when it was before they'd been released to the public, and he had a guy that was a farmer that he was friends with, and the guy used it as a farm truck for several months and said it was great.
Yeah.
Did all kinds of farm stuff. Hauling hay and
Yeah, right
cruising
around the
around
farm.
with
It's
trailers,
close. You're, absolutely.
Yeah.
They just don't have a lot of range.
No, you run into that range situation, and of course, we're getting 1 minute left. So, it's funny. I give the updates with Isaiah's fingers to the audience. I'm sorry, everybody, but
Do you want to mention the grunt hunt?
yeah,
Real
the
quick?
grunt hunt is Thursday, March 20th. Captain's Party, March 22nd is the fishing day. Weigh-in starts at 4 p.m. It's at Madeira Beach Marina, right? The Marina of Champions. So just, get out there, go fish the grunt hunt. It's cheap to fish. It's a great family event. Afterwards, they're going to be cooking grunts for people and everything like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Once again, Old Salts is helping out. There will be raffles, prizes. Obviously, you can win a bunch of money with a grunt and a hogfish division. That's a Calcutta. So, or side bet or whatever. I can't. But,
Side bet.
But anyway, guys, we got to go. We'll see you next week on Tampa Bay Fishing Radio. Don from Lithium Battery Power, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. And Isaiah, it's been a pleasure as always. We'll see you next
Anytime.
week. Thank you. Love you guys. Bye.
See.